Hello, everybody. Welcome to the session. We'll just give people a couple of seconds to get over here from the stage and have people join us. So if we just give everyone a few seconds, you can see the numbers of people in the session ticking up very quickly. And then, so if we give it 30 seconds or so, and then we'll get ourselves started. Lovely. So, welcome everybody to this session where we are going to be exploring the return of events and after all of the disruption that many of us who rely on events as part of as one of our kind of key formats for delivering things have had to make a lot of changes this year. We have brought together this session to really have a very engaging and interactive discussion with you all. So we really want you to be taking part in the chat and bringing your own experiences and perspectives as well. But to help us bring this conversation to life and bring things out, we're going to try something a bit new with some of the formats. So, you know, it's day 2, we're getting ambitious. What we'd like to do with this session is to start off with a bit of provocation and then invite some of you to both engage with us in the chat, offering some of your own comments, thoughts and perspectives, but also some of those people who are engaging in the chat will invite you to join us on camera and tech permitting to also sort of say a little piece to the group as well. So that's the plan. So without further ado, those of you who haven't bumped into me yet across the conference content, I'm Matt Postles. I'm Deputy Director of the Natural History Consortium. And when we are not running our professional facing programs around Communicate, we also deliver public facing activities through our partnership which includes the Festival of Nature, which is the UK's largest free entry celebration of the natural world. It usually involves about 30,000 people coming together in large scale science festival style events in the summer. So we've obviously gone through a lot of changes and things in those events, and as you've experienced, we've had to make a lot of changes to Communicate. And then we are also very fortunate to be joined by Ivvet from the British Science Association. And Ivvet, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Matt. And just to say, it's been such an inspiring few days. Well, yesterday was brilliant. Let's see what happens with our ambition today. I'm sure it's going to be great if everyone chips in the comments section also. So my name's Ivvet. I'm Head of Engagement at the British Science Association, as Matt said. So we're a charity that aims to make science part of culture, and we work across the UK. As Head of Engagement, I'm responsible for our public programmes. One of our flagship events is the British Science Festival, of which I'm the director. And of course, as you can imagine, with many other events this year, it has been postponed to 2021. And I'm also chair of the UK Science Festival Network. So that's a community of practice of about 45 independent science festivals across the UK, including the Festival of Nature, who is a member, and we sort of talk to each other and really share best practice amongst our members, just to sort of really be there. And I think this year's been so important just to be there for people. At the beginning, it was quite a difficult time, lots of people not really knowing not just what to do, but also if they were going to come out the other end as an organisation or as an event. So it's been quite a difficult year, and I think now we're getting towards, I think there's 35 days left of 2020. The only other person that knows the burden that we are all putting on 2021 is probably Joe Biden, and we are going into the new year optimistically and sort of full of hope and thinking about how we can return to sort of normal. But I say it like that because, of course, what is that we're returning to? And more importantly, who are we returning to? You know, what have our audiences been through this last year, and how can we adapt to their needs by really listening? So that's what we're here to talk about today. Matt.
Fantastic, thanks for that. And I think so. As I mentioned, this is going to be a really interactive session, so we want all of your comments in the chat. There are 2 polls in the polls menu that you can start jumping into as well, and we'll return to them a little bit later. But just to kind of give us a bit of an idea of who's in the room, how what your kind of how many face-to-face type events you're usually up to, and also what sort of activities you've been doing under lockdown, and whether you've been taking part in any kind of digital events and making that switch and that pivot. The word pivot has become much more used in 2020 than ever before, I think that will be really interesting to sort of feedback in. So in the chat, do drop in your responses. And the idea is that Ivvet and I are going to put some challenges to you, and we'd love to get your responses in the chat too as well. So Ivvet, do you want to drop in with the first challenge to the room?
Yes, so I think the first challenge was, leading on from what I've said already, was around this idea of what are we returning to, what audiences are we going to be seeing coming back to events, and how are we adapting? So I think this year, particularly, we've seen a lot of people rushing to digital. So I think when it happened in March, there was a moment of panic. And I think a lot of people are like, oh my goodness, how am I going to continue delivering the events and activities that we'd planned? But there was also, I think, a period of stopping, which was very important, listening to what people were going through. And I think one of the things that I saw a lot was, well, we're going to just put everything online, it's going to be fine. And I think it really does a disservice to what live events are about, actually. So it's not just always a vehicle for disseminating information. Actually, some of our live events are around social interactions and building community, not just about like I said, giving out information. Even joining a session like this, there's 92 people watching. That's more people than I've been in a room with since March, which is, there's that feeling of what can events do. It's sort of you're reminded of being in a room with lots of people, and I think that's just as powerful as the message that we're often trying to get across. But as well, I've seen lots of people that said, right, the fix to this, we're going to go online and we're just going to send people laptops or devices, and that's fine. But I think with some communities, if you don't have those things normally and people are just sending them out, that's really it's charitable good, that's lovely. But if I was a kid sitting in my house and been given a laptop to engage with a science activity for the first time, I'm going to be honest, the first thing I'm going to go on is probably not the activity that I've been sent the laptop to do, because actually there's a whole load of other things I want to do, and how can I fully engage with that activity through digital means? So I think we're just trying to think a lot about what are our audience's needs. Also understanding people have got sort of jobs to do as well, but I think we need to put those audiences first and really listening to what they need and why they're coming to the events in the first place. So that's kind of my provocation, I suppose, is, are we really centering the needs of people? Are we trying to help at this point, or are we just trying to do our jobs and get by, and not really listening to people?
Thanks for that. And we're already seeing quite a few challenges, a few answers to the challenge coming up in the chat. So if we have a little run through some of the things that we've got, there's some, we've got some, before we invite some people to maybe come in on stage, if anyone's feeling happy to do so, to come in and join us for a couple of minutes just to give some of their thoughts in person and elaborate on some of these points. But Ivvet, do you want to sort of, just reading through some of the comments there, is there anything that you'd particularly like to respond to or to highlight?
Still reading. This was very much an experimental process. I think it's really interesting to see people are talking a lot about how to be a friend to the community. I think that's really important. I actually saw there was a art space actually in New York that turned into a food bank, which I thought was a really interesting way of totally rethinking what it is they're doing. And I think that's a few of the conversations bringing that up as well. I don't want to pick on people. I feel like, is that fair? Can I just like pick people out?
I think let's pick on people, and so if you get a shout out to
actually, you know what,
join.
Deborah has nominated Sue, so I feel like it's not even us that's picking people out. This could work excellently.
Fantastic. So if Sue, if you are happy to join us on stage for a moment, that's an okay. Fantastic. So if you hit the blue button that asks to share your screen, there you are, and you will hopefully pop up with us, assuming that your camera and everything works. This is the moment. There we are.
Moment of truth.
Hello, Sue.
Hi, Sue.
Welcome to the panel.
Thanks.
Before we get started as well, do we want to pick out one more person to join you as well, to have a little bit of backwards and forwards? Does anyone else want to do a nomination?
I think Steve's saying some interesting stuff about reaching those that are already converted. I think, yeah, sort of that might be an interesting
Steve, are you happy to join us on stage? Again, just the blue button. There he is. We have the technology.
There we go. Alan's already nominated Steve. So again, I feel like this is a democracy, not a dictatorship.
Fantastic.
Good morning.
Lovely. Good morning. Welcome
Hi.
to the panel. So if we'll keep it to the four of us for now, and then what we'll do is we'll have set ourselves a little time limit, Sue and Steve, so that we can release you back into the wild at the appropriate point. But if we stick with ourselves here for now, I think if we maybe go to you first, Sue, as our first nominated, and maybe if you just wanted to elaborate on some of the points you were making in the chat.
Sure. Hi. So I work for RSPB Cymru. I'm on a partnership project called Giving Nature a Home in Cardiff, which is a partnership between RSPB, Cardiff Council and Bug Life. And we've been running for several years. And I think we were really caught up in the whole doing lots and lots of events, the churn of day-to-day activity. We run lots of school sessions, lots of community-based interaction with nature type events, and we have always worked in quite a community focused sort of way in terms of finding organizations and venues out in the community to work with, to try and reach as wide a spread of people as possible. But because the targets for numbers of people to join our events and things were so high on the project, we were really caught up in that churn all the time. And I think when COVID hit, we had this moment of panic, like I think everyone had. We were just like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We're going to have to put everything online. And can we do that? And can we achieve that? But then we were all put on furlough. And so we were forced to stop. When we came back, we decided actually we were just going to rethink the whole project because it just wasn't appropriate anymore. And we talked to our funders, and so we've reshaped our project objectives around the things that we felt we weren't quite achieving before. So trying to get a greater diversity of people involved in the project, trying to shift some of the decision making so there's more community involvement in decision making. We're now looking at trying to set up a kind of community panel for the project to help with decision making. We've talked to teachers, and we're going to be putting together some teacher training and some virtual sessions. But with our first step beyond coming up with new objectives, and looking at how we can involve our volunteers who all had very specific roles before around helping us at events. Well, we're not doing any. So what do we do with the volunteers? So now we're trying to get them involved in helping us redesign the project, and how we can help them to feel confident when we can go out again, and helping us to design activities. So then the next step is we've been writing out to community partners that we already have, asking them about what's happening for them and what are the priorities in their community and what they think people's relationship with nature is, and how can we help them to achieve the things they're trying to achieve. And we're just waiting for responses to that at the moment, and then we'll kind of we'll see what comes back and then make up the next step. But it's going to be a process of and asking them to kind of suggest to other people who might be interested in what we're doing, and then we're going to be starting to build some relationships with new people. There's a bit of paid consultancy around inclusivity, because there are some areas of the community we know we're not reaching, and it makes sense to pay for that expertise, because you know, if everyone just goes and asks people, then they're just giving all their time away for free. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. We're sort of making it up as we go along, but actually it's a useful pause to have been forced to take.
And does that resonate as well? Just maybe more answers. Lots coming in through the chat, but you know, does that resonate with people in the session as well, of that kind of initial panic and kind of scramble to either adapt, but then, you know, having the opportunity to step back and look at opportunities as well? Lots of agreement coming in there as well. I suppose, is that a good point as well to throw over to you, Steve, as well, and kind of pick out on some of the points that you were mentioning?
Yeah, well, I'm director of Stratton HCIC. I mean, we're very, very small, maybe 3 or 4 directors, and we've run the Stratton Festival of Nature for the last 11, 12 years. And I think, just as Sue was saying, you get hung up on numbers. So the first Festival of Nature, 12 stalls, a few hundred people. You know, 2019, it's now 56 stalls and it's 4,000 people. And in a town like Stroud, that's a lot of people. So you look at those numbers, you think that's fantastic. But one of the things we're always aware of is that probably every year there are 3,000 of those people come every year. So my note about the converted was about, well, actually we need to be reaching those other people who aren't coming to the Festival of Nature. So we actually organise Festival of Nature through a forum. We have a Stratton Nature Forum. We have about 30 organisations who attend. They're all local organisations, all involved in different aspects of the environment, conservation, health and well-being, and so forth. So just like you, Sue, we panicked first of all because we thought there's no Festival of Nature this year. But actually, and we didn't rush to go online. We've actually just taken a pause. We've actually just stopped because actually it's very much an extracurricular activity for our directors anyway. We're all involved in other things. So we thought, well, why put energy into that? We can just have a pause, rethink. And so in January, I think we've got our first Zoom meeting with the forum to actually talk about where we go from this. I've just sent an email to a Stroud-based video company to say, look, can we look at some kind of maybe hybrid version of the festival next year? Can we maybe not focus too much on numbers, but think about who we're inviting and how we can involve them? So we're looking at an idea for nature pods, which is based around bubbles and families. So, and doing it through schools. So we'll get these small groups into Stratford Park or Ribbons Festival and actually focus our attention on people we want to reach rather than thinking on the festival's success purely through numbers. Yeah. But also we have a 3-month-long program of other smaller events we run as well throughout the whole summer. So again, we need to be thinking about those events as well. But those can be maybe smaller type events with a limited number of people, social distancing and so on. But again, we don't know where we're going to be in June, July, August of the next summer. So it's just, I think, just being prepared for any eventuality.
And can I just come back in? We had really good conversations with our funder about this because we'd just done a project review, a sort of mid-project review before lockdown. So we already had lots of information about all the stuff, from our partners that we had been working with and our audiences. We also had a lot of feedback from them that we wanted to act on. And we had a lot of ideas about what we wanted to change about the project. And the funders were fantastic, actually, and they really helped. They really let us go with it, and they've approved our new objectives. And we've really reduced down, like you said, the numbers of people that we are targeting to work with in favour of going for impact and stories and learning about how people are engaging in things and who's engaging in things, sorting out our monitoring and evaluation to make sure we're properly understanding what we're doing and how we're doing it and what impact it's having. So I think that's really good that we're lucky we had a really good funder, Community Lottery.
We're also shifting our focus actually in terms of Stratton Nature is developing a project called Garden Guardians, and we've been working on it. Strange enough, this 2020 was put the dampers on it for a while. We're trying to reinvigorate that in next year. And that is very much about and I think it's why Springwatch was so I think special this year, was about people's gardens and the green spaces that they live, walk and work through every day of the week, and about those places that are pertinent to them as people. So we're trying to sort of use Garden Guardians as a way, as a focal point for the festival events next year. Yeah. So I think that's also another way of doing it as well, rather than trying to encompass everything. We're actually saying to our forum, look, this is a project we're running with, you can be part of this, but there is a very clear sort of direction that we're trying to take on this. And it's about engaging people in places where where they live. So again, I think that's something I think we'll see if that works.
I think that's really important, just that idea of, as I was saying at the beginning, thinking about the audience need. And so there was that time in lockdown, the only thing you could do was go outside into nature, an hour a day. And that's really unique for organisers who work in the environmental sector, because all of a sudden you had people that were wanting something, that's the only thing that they could do. So that's a need there that we can all help try and sort of exploit in a way. It's like, how can we put the messages out there or create activities that tie into that?
We just one last really quick point. So we're part of a kind of a forum of welfare services providers in Cardiff, social housing and homelessness and jobs centre and things like that. And from going to that forum and listening to what they're dealing with at the minute and how massive the demand is and growing for support, and their suicide rates have gone up and the unemployed rates are going, just hearing what they're battling with, it's really made us think about what our part is in all this, and we realise that actually what we have to offer is hope, is a ray of hope, is potentially some nice things for people to do, some fun, some things for health and well-being. So it's just kind of reframed how we think about what we're doing and how it can help people.
Absolutely. I think that has kind of led us on to nicely, and there's a nice kind of thing in the chat here, is what we might do is if we say goodbye on screen to Sue and Steve and bring in a couple of more people. Thank you very much for those thoughts. Really have stimulated a lot in the chat as well. So I'm just going to boot you both off. Apologies for that, very unceremoniously. And I just wanted to pick up actually something that, before I go on to sort of our pre-prepared challenge, actually, that if you're happy to do one on the fly, there's something coming up in the chat that's really that seems to be covering both a little bit of that kind of inclusion, and we heard a lot yesterday about the through intersectionality panel as well, but a lot about sort of how of people in the chat talking about this blend of using appreciating the value that has been highlighted around how useful that face-to-face engagement is when we can't do it, but actually also sort of using the new skills that we've learned through digital to broaden out and to increase those numbers. And we've gone online with Communicate for the first time and had our biggest conference ever, lowering some of those barriers for some people. It'd be really interesting if we could maybe bring together a couple of the people from the panel to maybe look at those two things together. Do you think it's sort of that kind of lowering barriers and things?
No, that's perfect, because I was looking at it, I was like, because I think blended events, are definitely here to stay. This idea of part virtual, part physical, when we can get back to normal. I think it's a really good conversation to have. I think there's an interesting conversation around quality versus quantity. So numbers, the word numbers has come up a lot. And of course, one of the things that I struggle with, and honestly, I don't think anyone's given me a very good response to this, is how you actually measure how good your online event is. So I think it's different for a conference, and I think actually someone said this in the chat, you can easily see how a B2B type event could work online. We've all got reasons to be here, for our jobs or our volunteering interests. But if you're a member of the public, how do we measure that people are actually enjoying your online experience. And I think that's something as practitioners we really need to keep in the forefront of our minds, because I know how to do it in a live event, you know, and it might be the really smallest of things. You'll see a parent with their kid and the kid will know everything about bugs, and their parent will look at them and go, what? Like, who are you? You know, but even that is an impact that is measurable to some extent. And so how are we able to do that online? It can't just be, you know, we're streaming out onto the internet, but like to who and why and to what end.
Fab. Shall we welcome a couple of more people onto the stage? So I've got Mira, has requested to join. I just want to make sure that before I let you in, Mira, as well, if you can drop in the comment, just to make sure that that was deliberate and not accidentally clicking a button. And then I think the person who maybe brought this up first in the chat was Roxanne Cooper. So I don't know if Roxanne, you'd like to join us as well on stage. Or if anyone else who wants to kind of jump in as well.
We've got quite a lot.
We've got Roxanne as well. There we are. And then Mira, I'm going to press go on you. So I apologize if we surprise you.
So good. I am struggling to like read all these comments and talk. It's like
I've got lots of screens and I've had a lot of practice over the last day and a half. So hopefully those two should now be able to join. It is possible that okay, so there's Roxanne. Hello.
Hi.
Hello, welcome.
Okay.
So we'll see if Mira as tech lets her join us. But in the first instance, Roxanne, do you want to maybe elaborate a little bit on some of the points that you were making in the chat there?
So I made a couple actually. So I'm actually quite new in my job. I'm a visitor experience officer at the National Trust. And I literally started in March, had a month, and then went on furlough for 3 months. Not done this job before with them. So when I came back, it was amazing for me to kind of have to refocus on not having all of this. This is what we've done before. Here's Easter, here's the summer program. And I had a chance to go, right, I've got no money, so I can't spend anything. I've got to be able to do everything myself. But it's got to be really engaging for our visitors because they are desperate to come back. And so for us, it was kind of, what can we do? We started with a couple of trails, a Stratton school trail, so part of our history, and just making it really engaging. So, oh gosh, even actually, one even better example, I think, was I literally hung picture frames around our garden and encouraged people to find a new view and to look at things in a different way. And then the blend of having that online was getting them to post their images and their photos on social media. And it was a fantastic response. When I was taking them down to put out our next event, I had visitors going, no, don't take them down, we want them to stay. And I was like, they'll come back, it's fine. But I think that blend of making sure it's really good quality, even if we've not got any money, and you know, people just want something that they feel we've invested in and that we care about, and it's not just here's anything to get you interested in what we're doing. Yeah, sorry, a bit rambling.
No, that's absolutely fine. I think we've had a couple of people had a bit of a trouble hearing you there, Roxanne, but I think I think that's fine. I mean, this is the risk that we play with bringing people in who we haven't done a full kind of tech run with is just in case it might not quite come through. But I think it's really, really interesting that we've got this kind of this really looking at the who, and I think it's quite interesting as well. And you know, we've even experienced in a business to business sense as well through Communicate has been that even where we're all kind of having to change and switch onto these sorts of things in our day-to-day work, there is still a definite divide in the digital as well. So it's really interesting that's kind of coming out in how people are working. As well.
Yeah, I think that was really interesting. Some of the organisations we work with that are quite large, we just thought they'd be able to manage the switch to working from home, and it actually took a few weeks for them to be settled and get the IT systems up and running, whereas like some of the smaller organisations were just ready straight away. It's like, we work from home already, this is no change. And that was quite interesting to see. It's quite levelling.
Fantastic. Shall we bring ourselves, if we say thank you very much to Roxanne, and we'll unceremoniously boot you out again as well. Thank you very much. And then I think that, again, we're now starting to get in the chat kind of very nicely segueing into our next challenge, actually, which I will drop in the chat now from my other screen over here.
Excellent master of ceremonies here. So I keep going on about this Netflix point, but it's so true.
Visitors is thinking about this idea of, and this was part of the chat that Ivvet and I had in advance, is that Netflix is £8.99 for a month, and people have got limited time. People are so fed up of screens and on screens all day. If we're going to be shifting content to digital, what is it that makes these events worth people's time? And particularly where some people have been mentioning, the funding and things as well, is how can we justify the prices that we might charge for ticketed events, and if we're offering free content, then how are we looking to be able to do that in a way that works really well. And I think I made a quick note, because I know that early on in the point as well, if people want to kind of respond to that second challenge, but I actually earlier on, before we moved on to it, I noticed that Faye, and I didn't write down her surname, which I'm now scrolling back to try and find.
It's fine. If it all goes wrong, Matt, we can just show a video of sharks and turtles having dinner. Like, that's,
perfect.
Getting lots of traction in the chat.
Let's see, I can't quite find it. It was Faye Whitfield, I think, was saying, hasn't held any digital events this year because of the need to generate revenue, and that people wouldn't be attracted to an online event. So I think if Faye, if you're up for it and you'd like to join us on stage, I think that'd be a really interesting point to elaborate on a bit more. And maybe if someone else wants to put their hand up for, there is Faye, she's coming in. If someone else wants to
nominated Bernadette.
Oh yes, so Bernadette, if you're happy to answer the call from the audience as well. Yeah, we've got Bernadette as well. So you should just need to give permissions to share screen. So hopefully this will work. Faye, we have Faye.
That's weird. Hello.
Hello. And
should be coming on.
There's Bernadette as well. So shall we just start with Faye? Think about your point of not deliberately not making the decision to not run digital events this year as well.
Yeah, so I work for Bristol City Council Parks Department, and I'm the commercial engagement officer, so I manage a lot of commercial engagement for our commercial businesses, and saying the priority in my job is to generate revenue, and then I've got a counterpart who works on the volunteering side, and her job is to do events, but it's all for the volunteering side. And I know that when lockdown happened, I had a calendar of events ready, and this is my first year doing this job as well. So I was very excited to test out all these ideas I had. So next year will be the tester year. A lot of the events themselves wouldn't automatically transfer to online, like I had, archery taster sessions and things like that, and deer feeding sessions that you definitely couldn't do online. And a couple of people suggested other ideas, like I had a couple of ideas for crafts and things. Someone suggested things like willow weaving or other crafts and things. And I thought, well, if I'm going to charge them to come to this sort of crafts event, but then they've also got to buy their own materials as well. And also at this point, we're in, deep lockdown. Where are they going to get these materials from? that felt like we were asking too much from the public to get them engaged. And I thought anything that required not asking too much from the public, then I didn't feel I could justify it on its own. Why, if this doesn't involve, if this, the customer might think, well, this involves very minimal effort for me, why am I interested in it? Or you see what I mean? So I decided not to run any at all. And then I ended up sort of getting, not furloughed, but co-opted to a different team within the department to work on something else instead. I'm going to try and do some events next year. So I've spoken to our archery instructors, and we think we can go ahead with that in a COVID safe way. We've got some launch events as well, hopefully coming. But I think what helps now is having the idea of a tier system, gives some idea of how we can do events in public, in person again, in a safe way, rather than us trying to sort of second guess how to do them in a safe way. Something else I was highly aware of, like I mentioned in the notes as well, something else I was highly aware of was that for some people, they're really strained in terms of money and time, whether that's childcare, people might be on furlough, lost their jobs. We've been really good at, the money, the revenue that we create from the events is good extras to have. But at the moment, it just feels like everything needs to be essential. And there's also been this sort of community spirit of looking out for each other. And I think the idea of trying to charge for,
Fantastic. And I think that's I think that will resonate as well with a lot of people in the chat. Sort of lots of the chat is moving so fast, everyone. Thank you very much. It's actually making it difficult for me to keep up with everything that's going on, but it's fantastic. And at the end of the session, this will still, even when we're off camera, this chat will remain here. So if you stay in for a few minutes, you can still see that, or as someone suggested, copy and paste it so that you can get hold of it afterwards. But it'd be good maybe to bring Bernadette in, just for I'm looking at the time. We've got maybe 2 minutes as well. So go for it, Bernadette.
2 minutes. I'll speak as fast as I can.
I know, I'm prepared as well.
Carbon Landscape Project. I work for the Wildlife Trust, and we've struggled same as everybody else, but we've embraced it very much so. We've accessed more funding during lockdown to be able to engage using digital kind of apps and different ways. So the basic plan going forward for ourselves, which we've already started, we've had digital youth summits in the summer. We attracted more young people than we ever had before. We had over 55 young people coming to that, so we could then sort of help us plan for the future. Really, we've got several trails going out across our landscape, and we've secured another 100,000 that we'll take out further than that as well. That'll be AR. We're working with artists, writers. We have soundscapes. We have lots of downloadable GPS triggered. We're working with writers, we're working with theatre companies, so there'll be immersive kind of theatre experiences, so you can actually experience the landscape. You'd have to be out in that space, but it'd be socially distanced, and that experience will be, through downloadable headphones. It's working again, like I say, with lots of exciting artists. We've made better links across the country with people like theatre companies, art galleries, Julie's Bicycle. So I think we'd be able to engage with organisations we wouldn't normally be able to engage with as easily because of, we'd have to do it in person. So actually it's been quite exciting. There's obviously, difficulties, but I feel we've embraced it as a trust, and I think it's really exciting times. There's a lot of Arts Council research into the fact that theatre-wise as well at the moment, some of the most exciting theatre is actually immersive theatre. People are actually looking for that actively, and we can do that with our landscape quite easily in our green spaces. So it's exciting times, I think, in some ways, and I think moving forward, same as Alan, who's from the Trust as well, with us, has said, it's to be energetic, it's to be bold moving forward, and maybe it's a mixture of that, of having live events so you can be in person with people, because I take on board, I think, feel exactly the same you know, we need to be able to have those so you can hear the dogs in the background. It's these human moments, isn't it? But you need to be able to see people's reactions, I think, as well, and that, you know, you don't get the feedback as easy. So I think a mixture of live events, real events, and a mixture of digital is possibly the way forward. And excited to be here today. There's lots of exciting chats, so thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you both very, very much for coming in. Again, lots of resonating comments coming through the chat. I'll boot you both out again. Thank you very much for those little bits. And Ivvet, I think our experiment has worked really well.
Yes. And also, I'm very excited to meet Faye. She's basically the real life Leslie Knope of Bristol Parks Department. I'm like, this is amazing.
So it's fantastic to actually be able to welcome some of you on screen as well. Faye, who told you that? As well. So Ivvet, we saved a little bit of, just in case nobody said anything, we saved a little format at the end as well, but we might as well trot it out for our last 4 minutes, which was just to put a question to you really. In your position, you know, working with so many science festivals and seeing how and supporting them to pivot and change things this year, I suppose the question would just be, so what was the one amazing, like, best piece of engagement work that you came across in 2020?
Oh my goodness, I didn't realize there was going to be one. We talked about having several. Yeah, it's hard.
But we don't have time for several. We've got time for one.
Well, I mean, I've seen so many great things, like, you know, virtual tours of city centres, thinking about some of the discussions that Black Lives Matter movement has raised with people and how that's resonated through, like, book clubs and things like that. Yeah, like I said, people just pivoting, the word of the moment, where it's, how do we actually matter at this point? How do we help our communities rather than just trying to do the work that we are used to doing? I think we've all lived through this time, but we've all lived very differently through it, and that lived experience, those differences are key in thinking about how we come back. You know, what is the appetite for people? What is their energy levels when they're coming back? I think that needs to be in the forefront of our minds. In terms of one thing, one event that I've seen work well, obviously I have to give a shout out to my fellow BSA colleagues. So my team have been working, so obviously our festival was going to be in Chelmsford this year, and that has been postponed to next year. And we've been working with a group of young people to create a zine, so about boredom, which has been very exciting. So I'm going to put that in the chat just to do a little shout out to my team who've done this amazing project. So yeah, fantastic.
We've somebody behind me has just shouted 2 minutes, which means that we still have 2 minutes. So
what about you, Matt? What did you see that was excellent this year?
Oh, let's see, I haven't prepared anything. I have really found some of the, I think, again, like you, it's kind of, you see lots and lots of different things. Oh, we've got Charlotte wanting to join in. Charlotte, do you want to throw in in our last minute? We'll see if we can get Charlotte on to throw in a random question in our last minute. It's also got me off the hook for not having prepared an answer to that question.
Someone's asked it's a zine. Sorry, I didn't pronounce it. It's zine. My accent's not coming.
Yeah. Well, I think our final pop-up person is not working. But
Hold it. No.
Well, it may have been by accident as well. That's also the possibility, or it may be that their camera is just not quite connecting. Again, it's kind of, there have been so many things that have popped through, and I think just the innovation by necessity that has come out has been really interesting. One of the things that I'm going to do what you did, Ivvet, and look back at some of the things that some of our team did as well. So we had a small grant to deliver a small event around the bicentenary of the discovery of Antarctica. And we had and we, instead of kind of, as always with these things, you never want to hand the money back. So we decided that we could definitely deliver something, and we took that entirely online and did Antarctica Day. And it was really interesting to kind of what we learned from trying to deliver talks-based content online, but make it really engaging and being able to have people kind of drop in and out of different things. So that's a kind of example of a thing that we did and learned a lot through, rather than necessarily the one best thing that I saw this year. But I think it's been really interesting to see people's learning. On that note, I can see it here that Savita has started on stage. So I will thank all of our panelists who joined us on the fly. Thanks very much to Ivvet as well. And it only remains for me to line up our little end of session video and say thank you very much. And we'll see you later on.
Thank you.